Hello and welcome to the Philippines. Today we're going to take a tour of the island of Cebu in the Philippines. And we're going to use an app called Google Earth. And we thank Google, whatever you think about Google and the company, thank you them for this app and offering so much information out here. Anyway, here we have the Philippines, and we're in Southeast Asia. Only a 14-hour flight from Western USA. Anyway, here you have the Philippines Islands, and if you take the Philippines Islands, put them together, you have a land area about the same size as the state of Arizona or the state of Nevada in the USA. Arizona has 7 million people. The Philippines has over 107 million, over 104 million people in that same area. So there's lots of people there. I think Manila up here has one of the highest population densities in the world. But anyway, we're going to talk about Cebu Island, and the reason we're going to do that is because that's where I have been living for the last couple of years, and that is in the Central Visayas. You have Luzon up here, the big northern island. You have the large southern Mindanao Island. You have the Visaya Islands right in this central area. And even though there are about 7,000 islands in the Philippines, really there are only about 9 islands or 20 islands that you would ever be concerned about unless you do an awful lot of diving or island hopping and that type of thing where you're stopping off at lots of little different islands. I had one person say that he would have no idea where to start with 7,000 islands. Well, you really could narrow it down to 2 or 3 or 4 for that matter. Anyway, one nice thing about Cebu is that it is protected by most typhoons. And the reason for that, these typhoons come in from the east and they travel here. Most of them head up north, and you'll often see the Batanes Islands up here uh, getting watches for typhoons. Uh, the eastern islands, Samar, Leyte, very seldom does Mindanao really get hit. They usually go up through this area. Today is December 16th, 2017, and we have a low pressure system coming through here. When we basically are in our dry season, we actually have a low pressure system, and we've had about 3.5, 4 days of rain, cloudy skies, and rain off and on through this area. But anyway, we are protected from most of the big storms. They spend their energy on these eastern islands before they hit the Cebu. Back in 2013, a typhoon kind of snuck its way through here, and Yolanda, and did some major damage on the north end of Cebu Island and Bohol here. But anyway, let's come in here a little bit closer. And we'll start in Cebu City, which most of you, if you are going to visit Cebu, Cebu is the second largest city metropolitan-wise in the Philippines. There are a couple others that are fairly close, but Cebu City is the capital of Cebu. It is I think it's got 80% of the shipping companies headquartered there, although Manila Harbor is larger than the harbor and shipping area there in Cebu City. Mactan Island here is where the International Airport is. If you're coming in by air, you will fly into Mactan Island more than likely. And I can tell you a couple things about that island. There are many different resorts, anywhere from 5-star resorts to 1-star resorts along this coast. And I've been to a couple, maybe probably 2 or 3-star resorts over here. I have visited a 5-star resort over here. Lapu-Lapu City is the main city on Mactan Island. I can tell you a couple things about the airport and transportation there. There are presently 2 bridges going across to the main island of Cebu, where you go to Mandawi City, which is where immigration is, and also Cebu City. They are planning on building a third bridge down here, but that's going to be a few years off, and hopefully that will alleviate some of the traffic congestions you can get here on the bridges. Now, at the airport, you have a number of different transportation choices. You have the yellow airport taxis, and they're dedicated to the airport. They usually take people away from the airport, and they come back empty. So what they end up doing is basically their meter will read about twice as much as a white meter taxi. Now, I can tell you that that really doesn't amount to that much, and if you're in a hurry, in my opinion, there's no reason not to use a yellow airport metered taxi. For instance, from the airport, I've made about 4 different trips there from where I lived up here in basically the north of Cebu, probably about 12 kilometers or 8 miles or so from where I lived up here to the airport. My cost for a yellow airport taxi, which I could get in immediately after coming out of the terminal without any delay, cost me just about exactly 400 pesos or $8. A white metered taxi, which I had to go some distance to find, but I did find one, I believe twice, cost me 200 pesos, half as much, or $4. But frankly, when I've been on a plane and in airports for 15 to 30 hours, that extra $4 really isn't that important to me. I want to get in the closest, fastest, most convenient transportation, go where I'm going. But that's up to you. There's a couple other options as well. There's a company called My Bus that I believe for probably 50 pesos or about $1 will take you across the bridge and down over here to SM Mall. And from there you could also catch a taxi. It'd save you a couple dollars probably in the end. If it's worth your time, that is another option. Now, Mactan Island itself has many resorts along here. It's got quite a number of hotels and quite a number of hotels and developments over there, condo developments, housing developments, that type of thing. Once you cross the bridge, you have Mandawi City. Generally, traffic is heavier in Mandawi City just because of the way the transportation system is set up right now. It can be heavy any place in the metropolitan area during the rush hour traffic times. Cebu City is the capital of Cebu. You have your downtown area. Down here, if you are coming in by ferry, you will probably come into one of the ferry ports. Pier 1, and one thing about Google Earth is their labels aren't always right because here you have 2 different piers listed as being the same pier. But Pier 1, Pier 2, Pier 3, Pier 4 probably. Pier 3. Anyway, most but not all of the ferries come into Pier 1 and along here. You have several transportation routes out of here also, and you will have many taxis lined up. Some of those taxis, people standing with signs, will try to get you into a taxi or into a private car for 500 pesos. And I can tell you that you should be able to find a metered taxi coming out of there. Grab Taxi often has a stand down there. You should be able to go pretty much anywhere in the Cebu City, Mandawi City area for 100 to 200 pesos. So you don't need to, unless you're in a hurry and you want a private car and it's convenient, it's available. 500 pesos or $10 is not a big thing, but you're paying much more than you have to. If it's convenient, go for it. there are other options. There are there again that you have my bus that stops down in that area. And last time I was down there, me and my friend came back on a ferry from Bohol, and we took a my bus over to SM Mall. I believe my bus is about a year old, and they offer a number of stops in the city. This downtown area, you've got a number of historical sites. You've got Magellan's Cross down there. You've got a fort. You've got a Catholic basilica down there. You've got over in this area. You've got a major market, Carbone Market, and some people will tell you that it's dangerous down there. Well, you have many millions of people in this city, and it can get very crowded. So anywhere time you're in a very crowded area, you definitely want to be watching your valuables, that type of thing. Cebu City itself, in my opinion, is a small, big city. The metropolitan area runs from up about Constellation up here down to about the city of Naga, and there's about 3 million people in that area. Talked to a lot of expats, a lot of foreigners who are moving out to this area, Liloan area, there's more and more developments up in this area, and also down to Talisi area, because the cost of renting has been going up the last few years in Cebu City, Mandaue City area. And I will be visiting some of those areas soon and doing some videos about some of those developments as well. Now let's zoom out of Cebu City. You've got, what does Cebu City give you? It gives you the choice of many hospitals, gives you a choice of many malls, gives you the choice of a number of resorts close by, other restaurants, shopping. But let's zoom out and let's start down at the south of Cebu. And you've got Dumaguete down here, which is a smaller city but very popular with expats, with foreigners moving into that area. And a lot of people will take a ferry out of here, or a bus. You can get on a bus and go up north of Dumaguete a ways, and then the bus will get on a ferry, cross over to the south end of Cebu Island, and the bus will generally take you up this road along the coast and into Cebu, where you can get off the many places in between. This line shows the ferry route from the Dumaguete area over here to Santander area. That's called Santander. And then the bus gets off the ferry, you get back on the bus, and the bus commences whichever direction you want to go, if you're taking a bus up this way or up the east side. And what you will find is that you have a number of places to visit. You have a number of beaches along this coastline. You have a number of, this is Oslob. Many of you have heard about that, where you do the whale shark watching. You can go out in small boats and you can either snorkel or watch the whale sharks from the smaller boats. And they actually bring them in by feeding them, which is a discussion for another time. But there are a number of different cities and resorts along this route here. You have the highest point on Cebu is, I believe, Mount Osmeña, which is up out of Dalaguete, and up in this area is also a lot of vegetable farming up in this area. And perhaps this is Mount Osmeña here. But you have all of these little towns along here. You will find that you have various resorts, and you can go online and check out the various sites. They have their beaches vary in quality. Argyle, and I have come up through there. I've come up through there on bus a couple of times, but I've never had the time to stop along the way to visit the cities in the south. Cebuanga, there's a big Catholic church, huge Catholic church up here that a lot of people go to see. Car, which is not so far south of Cebu City, is known for its shoe manufacturing, one of the biggest shoe manufacturing areas. There's also one up in I think north part of Manila or Angeles City area. And then you have San Fernando, City of Naga, not to be confused with other cities called Naga on other islands. Minglanilla, Talise, a lot of the people that work in the city come from these outlying areas. They can't afford basically to live in the city. They live out here. They take jeepneys on in the morning, jeepneys and V-Hire, which are 12 to 15 passenger vans, come into the city. And go up north Liloan. I'm going to visit, I believe, next week to visit a development up there, and I will be doing a video about that. Danao City. Now, I took a for about 1,000 pesos, and I probably paid more than I had to, but I took a taxi many months ago up to Danao City because there's a ferry service out of here that goes over to Camotes Islands over here, and it lands on this side, and which is where the resort was. In fact, this resort is where I stayed, Mangadlong Rock Resort. And I could have taken a ferry out of Cebu City, but that ferry stopped over in this area over here instead, and then I would have had to spend 3, 4, 500 pesos to take a tricycle back over to this region, probably. So I came up to Danao and cut across over here to that island, and I've done a number of videos about that. I rented a motorbike. I think it was 400 pesos a day. So for 3 days, 1,200 pesos, and we rode around these islands. Very fun time. Get up to Carmen up here. There again, you have a number of resorts, and the quality of the beaches vary greatly. You really have to get quite a ways up here before you start getting into your white sand-like beaches. There is a marina up here in Carmen where they repair boats, build boats. Sogod, that's where Go Russia is. German bakery and restaurant. That's they actually send baked goods, breads, and that type of thing into Cebu. I think a couple times a week. And go on up here. Gone. Bogo City, I hear mentioned often by expats, foreigners moving up into that area. They don't want to live in Cebu City, in the big city, and they move up to this city, and it's become fairly popular with foreigners. And I've been through the city. It's big enough that it has a McDonald's and Jollibee. I don't know that much else about it. I can tell you that from there, when we take our trip up to Malapasco, our ride takes us up to the port of Maya. Our ride takes us up to the port of Maya, which I believe is right up in this area up here. And if you've heard of Bantayan Island, this is Dan Bantayan Islands, and they as well. They have many nice beaches along here, my understanding. I haven't been on that side. I've been up here a couple times. I've taken a ferry over here to Malapasco Island. That's where I've done my diving, my dive certification, and dived off. That island in particular has many different dive sites around the island. And then we went out here, I believe, to some shoals where we did our dive down to the thresher sharks to see the thresher sharks. Get back over here to Mactan Island, and I do want to visit this area up here. And then you also had Malapascua Island here, which is the Purple Snapper Dive Resort. That has been renamed the Shark's Tail Dive Resort. But then you have Bantayan Island over here. Pardon me, part of the Cebu system. Much larger than Malapascua, but my understanding is that it is less focused on diving and snorkeling, and it's more of a laid-back island, whereas Malapascua Island doesn't really have any roads. They have a lot of trails and a lot of motorbikes, but they don't have any four-wheel vehicles per se for that type of traffic. Bantayan Island is a much larger island, has roads and vehicular traffic. I know a couple people that have resorts up there have invited me up to take a look, and I hope to get up there relatively soon. Medellin is a island also that I've been to, and over a year ago, probably a year and a half ago, I took a trip up there with some friends, and we went off to, we took a bank-a-boat ride out to a place out here. Cost me $1,500. The trip took like 6 of us over to an island called Funtastic Island. Funtastic Island, where they have little areas you can rent out. Cost very little to get in, either 20 to 40 pesos a piece, less than $1 to get into the area. A government-run facility, but you want to bring your own food at that time. And anyway, there again, you have different resorts along the coast as well. And I've stayed overnight at a place at San Remigio, right on the beach here. But I don't know. There again, it's a province town, small town. They have their cockfights and they have their markets, and it's covered in cloud right there, so we can't see down there very well. Although I don't think the resolution of the Google Maps is quite as good as it could be for some of these areas. And likewise, you can run down along, and various places you will have resorts. You will have looks like the sea gets very deep very quickly right here. And I'm not familiar with these various towns along here until we get further south. Asturias comes up as you will see that if you go to the V-Hire terminals and the bus terminals, you will see that buses and vans going to Asturias via Balamban. Balamban, another city right on the coast here, and then you go a little further south, you get to Toledo City, which is basically directly across from Cebu City. Cebu City being over here, and you can catch buses at the South Bus Terminal, or you might have V-Hire vans at the South Bus Terminal, or at SM Seaside Mall also would have vans that would run you over this way to Toledo City and up to Balamban. My understanding is there's quite a number of mines over in this area. Toledo was known to be a mining city. And I'm just wondering if that isn't part of a mine area right here. Almost looks like it's been a mined, open pit mine area. And there again, there are a number of falls. You've got mountains across the whole island. So you have a number of falls, and you have a number of caves going up and down the island. Bareilles area has a as a relatively famous falls over here, but more famous is Kawasan Falls, which is I think down in this area over here, Kawasan Falls. And you can just go to see it, or you can do. A friend of mine took a day and did one of those trips where you climb over the rocks and jump into the pools and swim in the falls and all that type of thing. And he told me that he looked like he was in reasonably good shape, about 62 years old, but he said he was sore for 2 days. He could barely move. So depending upon how good in shape you are, you might consider or not consider that. Mole Bowl, going south here, is a relatively small town, but it is a famous diving and snorkeling destination with white sand beaches along here. And there again, it's hopefully one of my next trips will be to Mole Bowl. Continue with some of my diving. And you've got many, many resorts along the coast, and out on one of these islands as well. Perhaps that's the island. I'm not positive. Perhaps that's the island that where they may have resorts, or they may just have dives going out there. I'm not sure. There is an island right off the coast, I believe. And you continue south along there. Badian, I believe there's, from Badian has some very nice, I believe the Badian area is very famous for some of its resorts, as well as a Bay Hotel, Badian Island there. Keep in mind that a lot of these notations on Google Earth are not accurate. That may well be up here further, so you take some risk. Alegria, and we're going back to the south and back where we started at Santander. So that is a look at Cebu Island. That is a real brief look at Cebu Island. And if you get bored on Cebu Island, if you are in Cebu City and get bored, there's lots to do on Cebu Island, and the island's very close to it. When I first came here many times, I was asked, have you been to Bantayan Island, this island up here? Or have you been to Malapascua? Have you been to Oslo, where they do the whale shark viewing? Personally, I would like to go up and see Mount Ozaminia and Delaguet and up into those farming areas up in there. I've been over here to Bohol Island a couple of times, and down here to Panglao Island. Anyway, very brief look at the Philippines island of Cebu. Thank you for coming along. Please like, please share the video, please subscribe. Safe travels to you wherever you're at, and we'll see you next time.